Hello everybody, welcome back to Firefield Junction, and once again there's another item for us in front of the camera today, and as we can see it is the brand new First Great Western HST pack by Hornby. Obviously only just fairly recently arrived in stock, and obviously I had just had to get one. Obviously it's perfect for me. I love obviously I modelled with the Great Western main line. I love my HSTs, so it was probably very obvious that I was going to get one of these. Obviously they've been in stock for a little while now. It's probably been over a month or so now since they arrived. But I only fairly recently got mine. I only got it probably somewhere in the region of a week ago or so now. So haven't had it for incredibly long. But I did get it from a retailer luckily, so I didn't get it direct from Hornby, and I definitely don't recommend you get them from Hornby. So it's nice to finally have it here. Obviously though, as we'll see later, not the best HST really that Hornby have done, but obviously we'll go into more of that later, where we have a look at it so we can really see what it's like. I haven't put the power cards back into the box. They're already out of the box because I wanted to get them ran in and everything really before the review was done. But as for the box itself, obviously it's not a bad box, but again not the best packaging in the world because it's the typical polystyrene tray inside. Obviously DCC ready, and as I have said, they've already got decoders in them. The power cards that you get in this pack are 43087, and it is a named one, but I'm not going to read the nameplate out. And this is the one with the motor, and then the dummy unit is 43098, and that is just a plain power car. Obviously no name, as you can see. If we have a look at the back of the box, as we can see, obviously you've got the typical information there on the HST, and there's also some on these particular power cars in that section there. But apart from that, there's not too much else in the box really. All the instructions and everything are still inside of the box at the moment as well, actually. But I've looked at quite a lot of HSTs now, so you should be used to hopefully seeing the instruction manuals for those and everything. But if we put the box to one side, let's have a look at the model in detail. So if I just grab the motor unit, here it is. So as we can see, 43087, and this is the unit with the motor. And overall, as is usual with Hornby's HSTs, it's not too bad. It's a very nice model. However, it's definitely not as good as the previous releases, which I have actually got next to me. I do have all three releases of the First Great Western HST now. So I'll show you the previous releases in a moment. But one of the downgrades with the newest one is, unfortunately, these ones do not have the opening doors anymore, which is a shame, especially considering the price of these now. It's, I think, £362.99 is the current RRP from Hornby for these. Why they've done that is I think that's just, it's quite rude, to be honest, because obviously they're brand new tooled HST is the exact same price, so they should not really have made these current older tooled models as expensive as they are, because they're just not worth that amount of money, especially considering with the problem with Hornby's quality control these days. These models are far too overpriced. They are way too expensive from what they are. Don't get me wrong, they're still nice, but they're definitely still way too expensive. Hornby have charged way too much for these, and as is typical with Hornby's quality control, I unfortunately had some quality issues with these. The first one actually was with the dummy unit. If I just bring it into shot for you, unfortunately one of these body screws on here does not come out. As I'm sure you're probably familiar with these, obviously the way the screws go into the body is the screws screw into an actual proper sort of metal, sort of brass piece which is secured into the body, and that brass piece has come out of its housing on the dummy unit because the screws were way too tight. Way too tight. It took me quite a lot of force to actually turn the screws, and unfortunately one of them, I think it might be this one, it's one of these two front ones, I think it's this one here. Unfortunately that screw is no longer usable really, so that does make getting the body off and on this unit a bit more difficult. Luckily it's not too bad. A slight issue with this one is, again, sticking with the dummy, and it's with this axle here. It's way too undergauged. There's far too much movement on it. I can move it from side to side quite a lot. If I move it over to one side as much as you can see there, it pretty much comes out of its housing. Luckily it doesn't cause any issues. but that's still a quality issue. It's far too undergauged, and it does cause some slight issues when running. Not in the system, in the and not in obviously not in the area where it doesn't cause derailments at all, but it does cause a slight sort of squeaking noise. And I have lubricated all the axles on here as well to try and stop the squeaking. But unfortunately, even with some lubrication, this axle does still squeak ever so slightly. But luckily, it's not too noticeable. But unfortunately, the most serious quality issue that I had was with the motor, and it was with the wiring for the lights. And unfortunately, the way the lighting on these is done, whilst it's not too bad, unfortunately, where the body had obviously been put onto the chassis, some of the wires had been squashed by the body, and one of those wires was seriously damaged, and it unfortunately broke. Luckily, it was one of the wires for the cab lights, and I don't really use cab lights on models. If they do have them, and I obviously chip the loco because I run DCC, I very, very rarely turn the cab lights on. I almost never use them. Obviously on these models, the cab lights are wired into the same circuit as the headlights, but I have disconnected the cab lights on the motor unit, so there's no cab lights in this unit anymore. But that's fine for me because, again, I don't use cab lights, but that's still a quality issue. We shouldn't be having models arrive with poor quality wiring. That's just not on really, especially considering that also the quality of the soldering in this model as well. It's not too good. The wires that there's obviously 3 wires that connect onto the little circuit board for the lights, and when I inspected those wires, they're quite poorly soldered onto the circuit board. One of the wires is almost barely hanging on, to be honest. So it's not the greatest quality model. It should be better than this, and it's unfortunately not as good as it should be. But negativity aside, it's still a nice model. Obviously, it weighs a lot, as I'm sure you're used to with Hornby HSTs. The livery application is very, very nice. Obviously, she does have working lights, as I've already said. You've got separately fitted wipers, which is nice. Again, separately fitted handrails around the doors, but unfortunately the doors don't open on this version, which is a shame considering the increase in the price. The bogies turn quite nicely when the wires from the lights aren't fouling them up, which I did have on this model and on one of my other ones, but I have sorted that. Obviously, she has got all-wheel drive, and the mechanism is very good, as you'll see when she's running. You've obviously got the typical centre-mounted 5-pole motor with the twin flywheels, and that drives all of the wheels. And the underframe detail is not too bad either. You even got proper sort of brake disc detail on the wheels, which is typical for Hornby HSTs, and it looks very good. And the detail on the bogies is very nice. It's not painted, unfortunately, but hopefully their new tooled HST will have that. You can just see the decoder inside there. Obviously, you've got the nameplate there. She does come with etched metal nameplates, which are still in the box. I'll get those out at a later date, and I might fit them at some point, but I'm not going to anytime soon. Obviously, she has got NEM couplings, and it's the sort of medium-sized tension lock coupler on this one. But obviously, you can change that to one of the Hunt-style couplings, or make your own if you want to. And on the back of the unit, you've got the typical sort of warning sign detail there. And you've also got the information there about the HST itself, about this power car, such as the weight, the max speed and everything. You've probably seen that on the real thing. We've got some nice detail there. We've got the tanks, and we've also got these the connectors there, like the electrical connections for when it's connected to the Mark IIIs. Obviously, in real life, you'd have sort of electrical cables coming from there, and that obviously goes along the length of the train to provide electricity and everything. But overall, it's not too bad. The roof is okay. Unfortunately, as is typical with Hornby's sort of more recent HSTs, unfortunately this is incorrect. There should only be 1 fan underneath those grills, but there's 2. The previous release suffered from that as well, and the original release is correct, luckily. But overall, it's not too bad. So if we just have a quick look at the dummy unit, just here, obviously again it's just as good, but you can obviously see it right through because there's no motor inside, but obviously you've got the typical circuit board and everything, and obviously there's a chip there's a chip inside here too to obviously control the lights. And again, just like the motor, it's very nice. Obviously there's still a decent amount of weight to it. The underframe detail is good. The bogies turn quite nicely. Again, livery application is very nice. Again, unfortunately you don't have the opening doors. But obviously you've got the number there, and obviously working lights. Obviously, you get some decent cab detail with these as well, and quite a lot of Hornby's modern diesels do have that, where they've got some decent cab detail. And again, overall, it's not too bad. Obviously, it's again still far too overpriced, but overall, if you get a decent one with no or very few quality issues, hopefully any quality issues that you do get are very, very minor. But obviously we shouldn't be getting any these days with Hornby's prices. But overall it's not too bad, it's a decent model, not too bad. But if I just show you some of the previous releases, so if I bring in the previous release here, this is the motor unit, as you can see 43070, I have looked at this power car pack as well in the past, if you want to go check that out. I'd say this is definitely better, and unfortunately mine is missing the wiper on the front because it came off several years ago. I'll try and get a replacement one day, but I'd still say this is definitely better than the previous release, especially considering that this obviously was pretty much perfect in terms of quality. Unfortunately, it still does have the incorrect fans, but overall it's definitely better. Again, it has the opening doors and they just generally look better than typical molded doors. I didn't have any issues with the lighting, all of the wiring is absolutely fine. There's basically minimal, almost no quality issues with this. Obviously, we have been finding that more recently Hornby's quality has pretty much been non-existent. Hornby really have gone downhill recently with their quality. I believe it's not, I'm pretty sure I've said that in other videos as well. But they really need to sort out their quality. If they're going to continue charging the prices that they are for their models, then they really need to get their quality together. If they're going to carry on churning out garbage like this that's got problems with it, obviously it's not really garbage, it's still decent. If they're going to continue churning out models that have quality issues and have faults like that, they're just going to continue to lose customers. I already know of people that have stopped buying new products completely because of the prices and the quality, purely because of that. Also because they can't afford it, mainly, or they can afford it, but they're paying a serious amount of money for something that's just not good enough. Obviously, and that's just not on really these days. And if I just put the previous release to one side, and if I just grab the original, first release of these power cars, just here, as you can see, this is the motor unit as well, 43017. Obviously there are some marks there because this unit obviously is much older than the other two. It's had a longer life, so it's definitely suffered a bit more. But I'd say if you're going to buy a first Great Western HST, I'd say buy this particular one if you can. For a start, I'm sure it's the cheapest one out there. I got this my original release here for a very good price, and it's absolutely fine. It's really good. The headlights on this particular unit are, I think they're on their way out because the headlights on this unit are really dim and you can't see them very well when it's running. Luckily the tail lights work fine though. But I'd definitely say in terms of accuracy and quality, this is definitely the best. Although this does use the original sort of spring contact connection between the lights and the circuit board. Apart from that, I'd definitely say this is better. For a start, obviously there should be a fan there. I've had to remove it so that the chip would fit. But this does have the correct fan. If you were to buy this, there's just a single fan underneath there, which is correct for the real thing. The colour for a start as well is, I'm pretty sure this is the most correct, nearest match to the first Western Blue in real life. Overall, I definitely recommend, if you're going to get one, get this particular one. Obviously, there's still nothing wrong with the second release. These particular ones are still very good. I'd say they're definitely the best in terms of quality, to be honest. But if you are going to get these, just be wary that they might have quality issues with them. But overall, the HST in general is still very good. Obviously, for the price these days, Hornby definitely are overcharging for their first Great Western HSTs. To us, for the HSTs in general at the moment, especially these particular toolings, they are overcharging. It's just not good enough. But hopefully when their brand new one comes out, hopefully then we'll actually get what we pay for, which we unfortunately don't with this particular tooling. But enough rambling on. Obviously the next thing to do is to get the model onto the track and see how she runs. So we'll do that. I've also got a full rake of the new coaches. Not all of them. I've created a mixed rake this time, mostly using the new coaches, so we can stick those on as well, stick the power cars with them, and see what she's like.